Thank you, everyone. It's now time for us to get into the second conversation for you today. Looking at the general election, what are you thinking? How prepared is INEC? And of course, the ups and downs from the court, a lot of accusations, and a whole lot coming to INEC this time under the leadership of Joash Amupitan. We'll look at some of INEC's activities today on the program, but then I assure you we won't be able to finish talking about everything that has to do with the activity today. But then we'll talk about some of the major activities of INEC and how they are faring going into the 2027 election right here. Okay, we have our guest who is joining us via Zoom today on the conversation. He is a columnist and a political affair analyst in the person of Jide Ojo. It's good to have you join us, Jide.
My pleasure, Ramsey. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Let's get into the conversation. As a matter of fact, INEC has been in the mix. And when it comes to INEC, you know what Nigerians think. I don't know, but then I don't know the percentage of people, Nigerians, that will not have one or two things to say about INEC. So, generally, before we get into one or two things, personally, on your own part, what's your assessment of the Independent National Electoral Commission under Joash Amupitan at the moment?
Thank you. You need to understand that Joash Amupiton came in October last year, succeeding Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, and uh, is barely less than a year at the saddle. The major election which he has conducted now is the just the Ekiti governorship election and then the area council election that was held in February of this year. Though he actually superintended over the Anambra governorship election in November 2025. But he resumed office barely 2 weeks to that election. So the true test cases for him are the area council election, FCT area council election on February 2026, and then the June 2026 Ekiti governorship election. Now, we need to understand that a tree does not make a forest. Why we may want to single out Amukpeton is Amukpeton is just primus inter pares. It's just first among equals. The board of INEC is made up of 13 people. The chairman and 12 national commissioners. They are the one that sets policy framework, drive the implementation framework and all of that. For instance, any decision of the commission must be agreed to by this board of 12 national commissioner and the chairman, who are appointed as co-equal. They are appointed by the president. They went through Senate screening, just like the chairman did. They can only be removed by the Senate on the advice of the president. So, Joash Amukuton cannot unilaterally sack any of his national commissioners if he feels he has stepped out of bounds. Then there are 37 resident electoral commissioners. These 37 electoral commissioners are in charge of the state, and they were also appointed by the president. They also went through the Senate screening before their confirmation. Like I said, with the national commissioners, the chairman of INEC cannot sack any one of them, even if they are deemed to have gone beyond their scope of work or they have committed one offense or the other. Let me quickly cite the example of what happened last general election. Three resident electoral commissioners, the one for Sokoto, the one for Adamawa, and the one for Abia, were found to have overreached themselves and What the commission could only do was to suspend them and write to the president for uh, for, for further for further. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, please? So you find out that these three resident electoral commissioners were only sacked on the advice of the or after the president wrote to the Senate asking that he should be allowed to relieve them of their appointment. So, as an individual, cannot single-handedly decide for the commission. That's why I'm giving you the organogram of findings. Then we also have aside from the national commissioners, the resident electoral commissioners, we have the 768 local government electoral officers and 6 area council electoral officers, which also are in charge of the local government. So whatever decision is made, majorly by the commission, which is made up of 13 people, is what you see being implemented. And so far, if you look at the preparation for 2027, INEC has been marching gradually towards the timeline and schedule of activities that it released in February this year. For instance, currently, the continuous voter registration exercise is ongoing and has even been extended by 2 weeks. It should have ended, but was extended by 2 weeks. Party primaries have been held. Now, political parties have been given access code to upload particulars of their candidate nomination portal. So, the worrisome aspect is whether the commission has been given the money for 2027 election. Because the new electoral act, in the new electoral act, they have the president is to give them money 6 months to election. And we know it's barely 6 months to that election because we're already in July, the election is in January. So funding is a major challenge for INEC. And I don't know whether they are very well on sure foot. Remember that next month, on the 15th of August, they will be going to Osun State to conduct the off-cycle governorship election in Osun State. So, thus far, I can say for INEC.
Ahead of the previous elections and what we have right now, would you say INEC has started early enough this time compared to the last years of elections?
There is no starting early or starting late. The law, the law sets parameters for INEC activities. If you see the timetable and schedule of activities, in that timetable and schedule of activity, they also quote in the remark column the relevant section of the law, whether the Constitution or the Electoral Act, which empowers them to do certain things. And like I've told you, the timetable and schedule of activities for 2027 was released in February this year. Initially was released on early February, but the president signed the Electoral Act 2026 into law on February 18, which necessitated an amendment. And right now, that is what is driving the implementation for 2027. So I would say INEC is on course with preparations. Of course, there are distractions here and there occasioned by the activities of political parties in terms of their congresses and convention, which were held March, April this year. And then the just concluded party primaries, which ended on May 30th. So there are issues there. And as you know, with every contention within the party system and within the political, within the polity generally, INEC is always joined in any matter that the political parties, aspirants, candidates, any matter they file in court, they join INEC, because INEC is actually the registrar and regulators of the political parties. I think the only situation where Abu Peter has been found wanting, I will cite two instances, really. There was swelling controversies about his partisanship about 3-4 months ago, where they said in a tweet, he actually supported the emergence of President Bola Tinubu, that he made a remark on a tweet made by the national youth leader of APC. And people were saying, oh, this man perhaps has sympathy for APC. There have also been other controversy about whether it was part of President Bola Tinubu's legal team in 2023, but that has been found not to be true. The person who has a similar name to his, that was part of Bola Tinubu's legal team in 2023, was Professor Taiwo Shipiton. Taiwo Shipiton. His own is Joash Ojo Amupiton. Piton is in the two names, but one is Oshipiton, one is Amupiton. So apart from that, as a commission, the only goof I think INEC has committed in the last 6 months of implementing the preparation for 2027 was that status quo antebellum interpretation, which made the commission to decide to derecognize David Mark leadership of African Democratic Congress. And when the Supreme Court ruled in April and said, look, the Court of Appeal should not have made that ruling of status quo antebellum, that it was wrong for them to have done that. Immediately, INEC was in receipt of that judgment. They restored the recognition of ADC. Now, since that time, there have been, at the level of INEC, there has not been any major issue. The other issue that INEC now faces is court rulings here and there. There have been several court rulings. In fact, I cited it in my column in the Punch, I think last week, where the court has asked INEC to register 3 political parties that they didn't ordinarily find their applications successful. But they went to court. One of them is NDC. The other one was NDP. And then recently, just last week or thereabout, Justice Lifu of the Federal High Court asked them to also give access code to a party known as ADA, that they should be allowed to upload their registration for materials. So again, that is not INEC's making. That is obedience to court order. So if a court is saying they register this party or they recognize this party or this leadership, INEC is duty bound as a statutory and legal entity to obey court orders. So, but what we have seen now, what we have seen in the polity now, is the attempt by powers that be, people within the Nigeria top authority, trying through subterranean means, through political subterfuge, to deregister six political parties. Remember the June 15 Justice Peter Lifu ruling that says ADC, Zeni Labour Party, Action Alliance, Action Democratic Party, and Zeni and Accord Party should be deregistered. Before the Court of Appeal now says action should be stayed on that, and that Justice Peter Lifu overreached himself, having given, since the Court of Appeal on May 22nd has said he should stay action on hearing that case. That is at the level of judiciary now interfacing themselves. Then another surprising one that happened 2 weeks ago in Lokoja, Kogi State, where Justice Dashi now said that he's reviewing his December 10 judgment, December 10, 2025 judgment, where it mandated INEC to register the NDC, National Nigerian Democratic Congress, only for you to say that INEC should not be recognized NDC because he wants to hear the case afresh. And that in itself has been appealed. So INEC has stayed away from that fray by not taking any action on those court decisions. And that is where the challenges are with the electoral management body. It is said that where two elephants fight, the grass suffers. In a situation where you have political juggernauts tackling themselves, joining INEC in the fray, the commission will, as much as possible, try to obey court orders. And in obeying court orders, it may not go down well with the opposition parties and their sympathizers, including some section of the members of the public. But as a statutory legal entity created by the Constitution, the Commission is duty-bound to obey court orders. As I speak with you now, there are plethora of cases in court arising from the just concluded party primaries. In fact, this morning I was watching on one of the TV channels where some NDC aspirants are complaining that the result of the primaries have not been made public. And now, INEC has given access code to these parties, party leadership to upload candidates, their candidates particular. So that is not INEC's making. But INEC will come into the fray because all those people who are aggrieved, who are going to court, will join INEC in their cases, and which is why the cost of litigation in INEC is soaring. Almost every case, whether it has to do with congresses of party, convention of political parties, leadership crisis within parties, party primaries, candidate nomination, every one of those cases, INEC is joined. And when you are joined, you have to make legal representation. And how many lawyers are working in INEC? As at the time, some years ago, I think INEC had only about 200 lawyers nationwide. And these 200 lawyers, imagine that there are 1,500 cases in court. How can 200 lawyers match and represent the commission in over 1,000 cases? So INEC has to make provision, budgetary provision, to hire lawyers to answer some of these cases. Some of them are handled by senior lawyers, senior advocates of Nigeria, which does not come cheap. But it's part of the challenges the commission faces as we speak.
Interesting. Where through it almost seems as though it's a new path. I don't think we have trailed this path before. The election cycle that comes with litigations flying here and there. But do you think this prolonged litigation could affect, preparations for the 2027 general elections? Do you think we'll get to that point where we start to shift elections because of litigations?
It's not impossible. Sincerely speaking, it's a very
interesting. We seem to be losing our guest there, but I'm quite sure he'll join us shortly.
I think I love the way he was emphatic. It's not impossible. When I heard that word, it's not impossible, I was like, hey, well, this is Nigeria, anything can happen. And everything that INEC is doing have deadline. Yeah, exactly. Even voters registration, we just spoke about it this morning.
I was going to ask you a question about
behind closed doors, we're saying people are turning 18 like on a daily. So why put a deadline?
A 2 weeks deadline.
The 2 weeks deadline. You know, this call seems to be very, very funny.
Okay,
somehow.
we seem to have
You know.
our
All
guest
right.
back.
Yeah, Jide, it's good to have you back. Continue.
So, like I said, nothing is impossible with our the situation we are facing in this country because of activities of political parties. They have not behaved themselves. Those who follow me on social media will have seen a post I made last week warning the political class not to destroy this democracy because they will live to regret it. It's so sad the way we go about allegations flying all over the place. Oh, the ruling party is trying to undermine the register, the opposition, and you ask yourself, why is it? I mean, I agree with my sister in the studio. We've never had this kind of scenario where there would be severe and sustained onslaught against the ruling party, against the opposition parties, particularly the main opposition parties. Why would you want to deregister 6 opposition parties in the lead up to an election that is barely 6 months away? And this is not even coming from Inec. This is coming from faceless groups that, let me break it down for you. The group that went to court to seek the registration of those 5 political parties before Justice Peter Lifu, that group called Forum of Former Legislators. I don't think they are even registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. And it was said that the arrowhead, the person spearheading that group, works in the office of the Chief of Staff to the President. If that is true, then it shows where the arrow is coming from for these opposition parties. And it seems like this is orchestrated. In that case, 5 opposition parties, you took them to court. INEC came and said these parties, we have investigated them. They have statutory mandate to participate in 2027 election. In fact, in one instance, in that of ADC, INEC was said to have sworn an affidavit on May 22nd, 2026, saying that ADC has passed every test to participate in 2027 election. Yet, a judge of a federal high court will have the audacity to compel or order INEC to deregister that party. Meanwhile, you are quoting section 225A of the Constitution, which already said you can only be deregistered if you do not have any member of the Legislative Assembly, from councillors down to the Senate, or score up to 15% in an election to an executive office. For instance, 15% of total vote cast in a presidential election in one state, or 15% of total vote cast in at least one local government in a state governorship election. Now, these 5 parties, at least I know of Accord Party, I know of Zenny Labour Party, I know of ADC, that had elected representatives in 2023. So on what basis do you want to register them? In fact, in Abia State, Zenny Labour Party won 15 out of 17 local government chairmanship election in that state, 15 out of 17, and with several other councillorship positions. So on what basis do you want to deregister that party? So my own reading is that the ruling party or their sympathizers or someone within the presidency is trying to undermine this opposition party in order to distract them, demarket them, and to pave way for the ruling party to have a landslide victory in 2027, which is not good, because we cannot be shrinking the political space, shrinking the civic space, and say we are promoting democratic ethos. So that is where why I'm and INEC has also come out under Professor Joash Amupeto that they are worried about the way courts are intervening in political matters, even despite Section 83, Subsection 5 of the Electoral Act 2026, which has said that internal affairs of political party cannot be, is not justiciable. Why then will you, court will still be giving judgment that is akin to undermine the existence of these main opposition parties? In the case of Justice Peter Dashi, that judgment on NDC, someone came to you, it's not a registered party, PMP, Peace Movement Party. You are not a registered political association. You don't have legal, you are not a legal entity. You drag a party to before a court. Now, a judgment was entered since December 10, 2025. You did not appeal that decision within 90 days, that you have the opportunity to appeal it. Now, about 6 months after, you are now going to court, asking that same court to review its own decision. And that judge agreed to do that, which is very surprising. So you find out that these activities and actions of the political class is really unnerving. It's very concerning. And let me give you a very shocking revelation. Did you know that the just concluded Ekiti governorship election, court was still asking INEC to put some candidate on the ballot 72 hours to that election, still ruling that, oh, this party, you must recognize the candidate. These are fringe parties who did not even make any appreciable impact on the election. But they will go to court and start making, and then the court, instead of dismissing such cases, will now say, INEC, make sure you put this candidate on the ballot. Meanwhile, the ballot paper had been printed, resources have been printed. So how do you want the commission to start reprinting those sensitive materials? Valid 2 days to the election. So if you see the ballot paper from Ekiti governorship election, it has space for 15 candidates, even though there were 14 names published because of this issue of litigation. Then you saw that in the result sheet, I think they have space for about 18 parties on the result. So this is very unhealthy. I've said on another media platform that way back in 2007, issue around judicial intervention was the reason why up to today, INEC does not put the candidate's picture on the ballot papers. Because by the time you put candidate A on the ballot paper, and meanwhile that nomination is being contested in court, assuming that 2 days to the election, the court now said it's not that candidate that should be on the ballot and decided to put candidate B, it affects the entire materials that you have printed. You have to go and reprint. And that was the scenario that played out in 2007, where INEC had to go and reprint some ballot papers because of court decision. So it's very concerning and very worrisome the way our political class majorly are behaving themselves in the lead up to 2027 elections.
This morning that voters registration has been extended for 2 weeks, and some persons are saying, but then we know everything have a deadline, but then people are turning 18 by the day, and of course, but sometimes INEC is in a fix because these things have deadline. Could there be changes to some of these things? And the issue of people not picking their voters card for certain reasons. Can you please address that?
Can't we be innovative enough to even deliver it to their houses for them?
Yes, it's a digital world.
Exactly.
Well, about the issue around permanent voters card and voter registration, I think technology hasn't gotten us to that level where we can register as if we are going to, as we go to bank to collect our debit card. You know, within 30 minutes of your going to a bank, you can get a fresh debit card without having to go and come back. But with permanent voters card, it's different. Due diligence have to be made because of fear of multiple registration. Um, the commission usually run what is called automatic fingerprint identification system software to make sure that no one individual register more than once, because it's also a criminal offense. And in doing that, right now we have 93 million registered voters. With the exercise that began last year now, maybe additional 3 or 5 million will be added. That will take the tally to almost 100 million. And you know, when you are doing cross-matching, sometimes it takes a bit of time, which is why INEC has said we are not yet at the stage where everyday registration is possible. They have to cut off and process, because there is also provision for claims and objection. So after the registration exercise, about a week is set aside where the those newly registered people will have their details published in the polling units around that constituency or the state or local government, and people will be expected to go and vet, see whether their name is on that register or not. If it is on the register, whether it's wrongly spelled or wrong address, they can then complain to the officials that are there, and such can be rectified. So maybe we can.
Up. Our time is up. I actually said we're not going to be able to finish talking about all the activities of INEC in this space of time. Want to say a very big thank you to you, Jide Ojo, for joining us on the conversation this morning.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone. This is the size of the conversation for you today on Global Morning. Our Global Morning returns again tomorrow. But we would also like to let you know that the opinion of our guest is entirely theirs and not that of Global Television. Many thanks for joining us on the conversation today. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo.
And I am Priscilla Obasi, wishing you an amazing day ahead.
Bye-bye.